Warning, this podcast contains dry humor and sarcasm not suitable to those who can't take a fucking joke. Listener discretion is advised.
Well, welcome schwelcome. It's another episode of the Anti-Social Murder Club.
Yes. Nia, you sound so happy to be here.
I'm slowly dying, but you know, I'm here.
And it's cold as shit outside.
Yes, but I'm happy.
Yeah. I'd rather it be this cold than 90 degrees.
Precisely. Because plus we get to wear layers.
Exactly. And flannels and beanies.
Get to look like a little boy.
Exactly. Well, this is episode 15 of your fave.
It's 14.
No. Well, okay.
You keep counting the bonus episode.
Well, it's 14 with a bonus episode. It's 14 and a half.
14.5.
It's episode 14. Yeah. We have whatever. It's episode 14 of your favorite Anti-Social Murder Club.
Yes, it's us.
'Tis me, Myra.
It is me, Mario. No, it's Nia.
I was like, wait, your name isn't Myra.
And yeah, we're back.
We're back. We bring two terrible cases again.
Yes, but what have you been up to? We have not talked with our... Well, do we have names for the people as their podcast? I don't know, our club members.
Our listeners, that's it.
Our club members.
Like, shout out to y'all for keeping the numbers going strong. We appreciate y'all.
Yes, you surprise us every week. There's some mornings we wake up, we're like, yo, where did all these numbers
famous.
come from?
Where's the money? And then we go to work and reality sinks in.
Yeah, we're poor, bruh. That's why I feel like we need to... Would you guys support us if we got a Patreon? Let us know.
Let us know by sending us money.
We're gonna start a Cash App, but no, seriously, if we had a Patreon and offered some type of exclusive content, would you guys support us? Like, let us know.
I'm
that.
selling nudes.
I'm being serious, Myra.
Look, sex sells. All right.
You're gonna pose with all your murder paraphernalia.
Yes, all the books. I'm gonna like.
We place it in front of your third boob.
Exact nipple. It's a third nipple, you bitch.
If you listen to the last episode, you would know what we're talking about. But anyway, yeah, we just been like working like crazy.
We've been working, trying to keep sane in this political climate.
Oh God.
Honestly,
yeah,
because
they're just attacking our people here.
I feel like if you hear like the pain in our voices as each episode goes on, it's just like the fact that this country is slowly going to shit.
I feel like it's already been there.
This is true. Maybe we're just like older and we realize it now.
I feel that way about a lot of stuff. Like, you know how like people will be like, "Oh, there's a lot of people dying." I'm just like, no.
People have
it's
like,
always been like this.
Like we all die.
Right. It's like we're just older and we pay attention more.
True shit.
I really feel like it's been,
especially for us brown folk. Yeah. It's always been shitty.
Yep. If you got some melanin, your life has been some shit.
Basically. You speak a different language. Your life is some shit.
Yep. But anyway, let's get into these cases.
Let's get into some more, like, super depressing things.
Exactly. We have 2 cases containing female murderers, which is, you know, of the rare variety.
And by pure coincidence, we're both doing women that murder children.
Yeah, we did not plan that.
At all. It just so happened. And I know we usually, like, keep the jokes going and shit, but I feel like for this, it's just going to be, like... Because, like, you know how, like, when we type our things, we'll, like, put in, like, little side notes or whatever?
Yeah, we put, like, one this
or,
time.
like, yeah, same. Because I just, like, there's no, you can't.
I mean, I feel like before we started recording, we watched a few docs, and I feel like it was easy to clown, like, the investigators or, like, make jokes about the actual murderers, but, like... the kids.
Yeah.
Kind of like...
Well, maybe for my case, it's just kind of like... We talked about this before, like...
Yeah. Well,
we'll get to it.
Right, since you're talking about it, as in usual, you always go first, so... Go ahead. Let us know who you got.
I got Andrea Yates. As you may know, this happened maybe like 15, 16, 17, whatever years ago. Like when you look at the date, it was in 2001. You look at the day and you're like, that's not that long ago. And then you're like, that shit was 17 years ago.
I was in 2001. What grade was I in? I want to say 9th grade.
How old was I?
Don't even say
I was 8.
You make me feel so old.
I was 8.
Damn. Yeah, I think I was in 9th grade because this is how I judge it. Cash Money was popping in the 99 to 2000,
Here
right?
Here we go.
And I believe I was in like middle school around that time. And so 2001, and I graduated high school in 2005, so I had to have been in the 9th grade. Mm-hmm. I had to have been in the 9th grade.
Yeah.
Don't be judging my math. I do my math by music. Thank you. That's how I figure out
cash money.
Yeah, that's how I figure out the years by music. But anyway,
all right. So, like I said, this is the case of Andrea Yates. So, on the morning of June 20th, 2001, just after 9 a.m., 36-year-old Andrea Yates sat down to have breakfast with her 5 kids. 2-year-old Luke, 3-year-old Paul, 5-year-old John, 7-year-old Noah, and 6-month-old Mary, which are biblical names, all of them. I was reading and I was just like, oh.
Paul's a biblical name?
Yeah.
The more you know.
After breakfast, Andrea went into the bathroom, filled the bathtub to the brim, and then one by one drowned each of her 5 kids. Luke, who was 2, was the first, then 3-year-old Paul, 5-year-old John, and then she held them face down in the water, took their bodies into the master bedroom, laid them on the bed, and covered their bodies with a bedsheet. 6-month-old Mary would be next. Mary had been in the bathroom this whole time crying in her bassinet. So while her siblings were murdered, she was crying.
Watching. She probably was just like, yeah, because she's a baby.
Yeah,
so
6 months.
Like, what the fuck is going on?
Exactly.
I can't move.
The kids are screaming and shit.
And she can't move, so.
Exactly.
Damn.
Andrea left Mary's body floating in the water and then called in her eldest son, Noah, who was 7. Noah ran to the bathroom and immediately asked what happened to Mary because she was floating in the bathtub. Realizing what his mother was doing, he ran, but Andrea chased him around the house, dragged him into the tub. Noah put up the biggest fight out of all the children, but Andrea overpowered him each time, and his last words were, "I'm sorry, Mommy."
That's so sad.
Look, I have 2 younger brothers, and, like, kids are, like, my soft spot, so when, like, I read this...
Well, you didn't have to do children murders.
Why did... Because, like, I remember this being on the news when I was, like, 8 years old or whatever.
In the 2000s.
And, like, I remember, so, like, it's one of those cases that stick with you, but I've never, like, read this detail or anything like that. Like, in the later reports, the autopsies and everything, one of the kids actually had, like, a clump of Andrea's hair in his fist from where he was, like, fighting back. Andrea took Mary's body, laid her in bed with her brothers, but Noah was left in the bathtub where police would eventually find him, which I found very weird. Like, he was the oldest, and it was just kind of like she didn't care about him.
I think she stopped caring as much because she had left the little one in there before she grabbed him.
That's true.
Before she
it was because he was. I don't want to.
Yeah, I was assuming he was heavier because it was a harder fight.
Yeah. Andrea then calmly, very calmly, called 911. She then called her husband, Rusty Yates. She told him that he needed to come home. He had just left for work an hour earlier. Rusty asked what was going on, to which Andrea replied, "You need to come home. It's time. I did it." When Rusty asked her to explain, Andrea responded, "It's the children. It's important to let everyone know that at this point, that Andrea had a very lengthy history of mental illness, which we'll get to in just 1 second. But Rusty had direct instructions from doctors to never leave Andrea alone. Rusty's mom would usually come to the Yates home just before Rusty was to leave for work, and she would stay and supervise until he got home. But just before the murders happened, Rusty started leaving Andrea alone for an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. Because he noticed that she was, in quotes, improving. So what would drive a young devoted mother of 5 to do such a heinous thing? I'm so, like, author-esque here.
What are you, Blue's Clues? You gonna stare at the screen?
Like Dora.
That's Dora.
Stand there for 5 minutes like, where's the map? Point to him at the screen.
Right? Where is the murderer?
Well, to get some answers, clarity, or just like any understanding, we have to go back to the very beginning. So let's go back to Andrea's childhood, teenage years, whatever. Andrea Yates was the youngest of 5 kids, born into a middle-class family in Houston, Texas. She was an excellent student. She graduated from high school as the class valedictorian. She was close to her family. She had lots of good friends. And overall, she was just like your average American girl. Or so it seemed. Andrea actually suffered from bulimia throughout her teenage years, and she had bouts of depression and spoke about committing suicide at around 17 to her friends.
Wow.
Yeah, and her family actually, like from her mom's side, has a long history of mental illness.
Mental illness, yeah.
Like people had been in hospitals for mental illness and all that, so it's like it runs through her family. Andrea earned a nursing
thing to know about before you started procreating with people.
Thank you. Well, they have Ancestry.com. No, what is it? DNA and Me or
I ain't giving them my DNA. I want to do it, but then I keep hearing like other questionable conspiracy theory-esque things and
like what?
Like they're keeping it on purpose for like experimental shit later on down the line.
American Horror Story type shit.
Yeah, or like some dude. Well, it's a good thing. Some guy that was a murderer. I guess he got caught up because
the Golden State Killer.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it's a good thing, but I'm just like, I don't know.
Why do you want it?
Right, it's just a little weird. Why are
you got some murders that you scared of, Nia?
No, but I'm just like, why are you compiling like? You want to know how many color folk live in whatever areas? Is there going to be like some type of extermination that's going to happen? I just want to know.
Open your third eye, people. This is a setup. This is a setup.
I'm just saying. Sometimes these conspiracy theories make a little bit of sense.
No, they usually sound like they make sense if you're high.
Well, I don't dabble in anything, but sometimes it puts a little bit of thought in there, and you're just like, I don't know if I would want to do it. I want to, but then I don't.
I don't want to do it. It's like I don't care.
I'm just curious to know, like, not to like completely divvy from from what we're doing here, but I'm just curious as to know how much of what my family told me is accurate.
True. That's true.
That's what I want to know, because I come from a family who claims to know our lineage and like tracked it back, and like because my family, especially my mom's side, they're very much into like history and like cultural identity and all that type of stuff. So like it would just be interesting to say, oh, so and so is from this place, or
I always wonder like how accurate those things are, because like in my case, it's like both sides of my family are from like different countries, and like say that there isn't any, like they didn't do anything important, or they like, how would they figure out, you know what I'm saying? Like that just doesn't make sense to me, because it's like, are you gonna go back to like who my Aztec ancestor was or my Mayan ancestor was, like on my mom and my dad's side?
Yeah.
And if there was like no one important, like how do you know? Like if there's no documents, if you can't like, or you just trace it back by last name, like.
Oh, you're talking about when they just go by genealogy. I was talking about DNA. DNA is a little different. Like,
do they like? Is it from like what region? Like that's what.
Yeah, they go by like region, and I guess like certain characteristics most people from that region, or certain types of DNA that people from that region tend to have. So like,
I don't want to know.
I don't know. Like for example, if everybody from Pakistan had this one gene or some shit like that, and you have it, then they'll say that you're related to those type of people or whatever. But
I know there's like German on like my mom, on both of my parents' side, so I don't want it to be like some like, you're actually white, and I'm just like, oh,
right. But I just feel like
saying it. So
the hard part about like DNA is so weird, because you may have more of a certain gene than your, like, let's say your sister. So it may look like you're white and your sister's like something else, and you're just like, wait, but we're sisters.
I'd go into a deep depression if they told me I was white.
That's like the one. Did you see the one where the Dominicans got tested, and then the one Dominican girl who's clearly Afro-Latina found out that she had a bunch of African blood, and she was just like, but I'm Dominican. It's like,
stupid
bitch. It's just like,
all right, let's not get too deep in this.
Sorry, guys.
All right, that's for another day. Where you just hear us talk shit.
We still got to get on that other podcast talking shit one.
True shit. All right, so back to the Andrea Yates case. All right, so we just talked about her history of mental illness as a teenager. Andrea earned a nursing degree from the University of Texas Health Science Center. She found a job as a registered nurse up until she had a job as a registered nurse up until she got married and had her first child. So enter Rusty Yates. So Andrea met Russell Yates, aka Rusty, which...
Their names.
What the fuck?
Rusty Yates.
Like, was he rusty? Did he look like rust? Like, I don't get it. All right. They met when she was 20, or I guess they were 25. They were, like, very close in age. Rusty saw Andrea swimming at an apartment complex pool, and he was instantly interested. They would date for 3 years and then get married. Before their first year of marriage came around, Andrea gave birth to their first child, Noah. Andrea had still been working as a nurse up until this point, but it was after Noah's arrival that she had to make the decision to stay at home and be a full-time mom, or if she wanted to keep her career and do both. Mm-hmm. Well, many people who were close to her said that they knew Andrea really wanted to go back to work, but Rusty said the opposite, that she, like, told him, no, I don't want to go to work. I, like, want to stay here. I want to dedicate myself to motherhood. And a lot of her, like, her mom, her close friends, family, whatever, said that she was a complete people pleaser. She would do whatever would make anyone around her happy. Which makes me think, you know, if Rusty was like, well, I really want you to stay home, or this would make me happy, she'd probably be like, yeah, I definitely want to do this.
But people pleasing can drive you crazy in itself.
Look.
Because your needs are never attended to.
Exactly. Soon after Noah was born, Andrea began having violent visions. She would, like, have visions of, like, a knife, like, where she felt the impulse to grab a knife, or she would see, like, visions, hallucinations of, like, someone being attacked with a knife or something like that. Mm-hmm. She heard Satan speak to her, but Andrea and Rusty were super religious, so Andrea kept all this to herself. Like, she didn't tell anybody. This wouldn't come out until after the murders. Over the next 4 years, Andrea and Rusty would have 2 more sons, Paul and John. It was somewhere within these 4 years that Rusty began corresponding with a preacher that he had met in college, Michael Woronecki. Look, this last name. W. So W was a self-proclaimed prophet who preached, among other things, austerity, which is extreme simplicity. He also preached that women have Eve's witch nature and need to be subservient to men. Which we had a great laugh watching that documentary.
Yes, and I've never heard of Eve being referred to as a witch.
Well, technically, because she ate, like, the apple from the snake, that would, you know, that whole thing is kind of like...
Yeah, she had knowledge, but I just never...
Isn't there, like, some story where it's actually, like, Adam had something to do with it? Like, it was kind of like Adam was the one that told her, oh, yeah, you eat it first, or whatever, and he had... Like, there's some... Look, Twitter will send you into, like, this wormhole
I never heard that one. I heard the one where it said that God told Adam not to eat the apple, but he didn't say that Eve couldn't do it. And Adam was probably like... Well, if she can eat it, I can eat it. You know, typical fuckboy
exactly
logic. And he got himself in a world of trouble.
Either way, look.
Yes.
If it wasn't for Eve, none of y'all would be... Well, if you believe in all this mushy, gushy Christian, we came from the rib of some person, whatever, Eve is the reason that you're here. So...
Incest is the reason why we're here. Anyway, keep going.
All right, there were letters found from W to Andrea where he told her that she was evil. So this is, like, in quotes, this is exactly what he wrote to her. You are evil, you are wicked, you are a daughter of Eve who is a wicked witch. Yo, shout out to Eve, though. If she was a wicked witch, I mean, that too.
She can be our coven Well, no, we like Ashley as a leader. Keep going.
She'll be our coven mother?
Okay, yeah, whatever that is.
I don't know. He also believed that if the mothers were going to hell, then the kids by default would too. But my whole thing is like, okay, what about the father? The father's just, like, completely washing his hands of this.
Men can do no wrong because of her witchy ways.
But here's the thing: men are raised by women and come from the womb of women. So where's your logic here? Get the fuck out of here.
And women are subjective to witchy ways.
because we're the weaker, so we're weak. We're weak.
We're weaker, but men can't say no to...
Our will is weaker, and we're easily swayed by the demons.
Men?
Yeah, I mean... yeah, because the devil isn't the devil, man.
This right here.
Bingo!
This right here is...
On the next episode of Debunking Christianity.
Yo! Like, that's my whole thing. Like, okay, but Satan is a man, so what's good? What's good?
Don't say what's good. I don't need him appearing. Okay.
What's good?
He's not allowed in my house, bruh. we gonna sage.
Late,
we about to sage this joint after you leave. I know time for that.
All right. After Paul and John were born, Rusty made the executive decision to sell basically all of the family's possessions and go live in a fucking RV. Again, because this W motherfucker told him that, like he said, like we saw in the documentary, that like having a job, having a house and all that was like basically giving into the devilish ways or the ways of Satan, which is like, all right, how are you going to survive?
He's probably like misconstrued the whole part of going into the ways of the world, but it's like, what am I supposed to starve to death because you expect me to live in simplicity?
Exactly. But I'm pretty sure he accepted money. Like, how are you surviving, sir, if you don't have a job? Right? All right.
Fuck boy logic.
Exactly. So there's this family of 5, the Yates. They're 5 at this point. 3 kids and Andrea and Rusty. The kids were all under like 5 at this point, I think. They're like all toddlers. And they were all living in a goddamn RV. But if that wasn't bad enough, and the RV was apparently way too fancy for them, they moved into a 350 square foot abandoned Greyhound bus.
With toddlers.
It's a fucking Greyhound bus. There's no, like, shower in there. Like, what? You got an outhouse for kids?
Probably stunk in there.
Ugh. Shortly after moving into the bus...
I think it was converted, though. I think that's what they said.
How much can you convert a Greyhound bus?
I think that's what they said on the doc. But go ahead, keep going, I'm sorry.
Shortly after moving into the bus, Andrea became pregnant but suffered a miscarriage. Before she could even physically or mentally recover, she became pregnant again. And I say became pregnant because I couldn't find another way to word it, but basically he impregnated her. Like, I don't feel like it was willing.
It probably wasn't, because also in the documentary they said that she did not like sex.
Exactly.
So her being a people pleaser, she was starfishing, bruh.
What?
Starfishing? You never heard of that?
No.
Like a girl that just lays there.
Oh. Damn.
You never heard that?
No.
It's called starfishing.
Isn't that Pillow Princess too? No?
No, pillow princessing is only when you get the toppy and you like to lay back and be cozy in the pillows.
Oh.
Like, you don't... And then a lot of times pillow princesses don't like to give. They prefer just to receive.
Oh, that's some selfish shit. All right, well, she quickly sank into a depression, and after giving birth to their 4th child, Luke, in 1999, her mental state got even worse. Andrea called Rusty at work one day saying she needed help. When he got home, or should I say when he got to the bus, Rusty found Andrea shaking, chewing on her fingers, and like in a complete, like, just, like she had scratches all over her legs, she was shaking, she was like having a panic attack or a manic episode.
A distraught state.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Rusty took the family to his mother's house where Andrea said she felt better, but in the documentary they say that he took her for a walk on the beach. Yeah, because that helps. But then she attempted suicide. Rusty and Andrea's mother finally got her into treatment. She was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, and she admitted to suffering anxiety and having overwhelming thoughts. It's here that Rusty's, apparently, like, a lot of people saw, like, Rusty's true colors, like the doctors and stuff, and saw that he was very controlling of her. Andrea was prescribed Zoloft, but was hesitant to take it because she wanted to breastfeed her newborn. But many people presumed that it was actually because W would judge her for it. W. I can't say this name. It's weird, but it's like the preacher dude. Just before being discharged, she was prescribed Zyprexa, and an antipsychotic drug for bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. But she would flush the meds down the toilet, and not long after, of course, she got worse. She began scratching herself, leaving sores on her legs. She told a psychiatrist that she was hearing voices and started seeing visions about that knife again. One day, Rusty found her in the bathroom pressing a knife to her throat. She was hospitalized yet again. While hospitalized, she confessed she feared she might hurt someone. She started refusing medication again, started refusing all efforts to help. She stopped answering questions, she stopped eating, stopped drinking. It wasn't until this point and after relatives from both sides started pressuring Rusty that he decided to buy a fucking house. And it wasn't because, like, he was, like, poor. He was a fucking engineer at NASA. Homeboy was balling.
Oh, we probably had a polo NASA jacket.
Anyway. I don't think NASA people actually wear those. But I think that's a misconception, ma'am.
Don't judge me. But I just feel like, why does it take outsiders for you?
Because here's my thing.
To treat your wife.
He's an engineer at NASA, which means he worked long hours. He was probably never home. She was all alone. And when he got there, he probably just ate dinner, wanted to fuck, and went to sleep. So it's like he never, it never dawned on him, or he just completely ignored the fact that his wife was going through all this shit.
Ooh, maybe he was one of those, like, weirdos, not weirdos, but one of those people have those kinks that, like, they like the person to not be present when they're around, so it probably didn't bother him that she was like that.
Or he was just like those dudes that like complete control, and it's like he can do whatever he wants.
Yep.
Like,
or whatever.
Look, this dude is creepy. Y'all gotta look at him. He's creepy.
Didn't you say he
looks like I refer to it like
Jim Bob.
He looks like Jim Bob from 19 Kids and Counting. And I feel like it's the same situation in there too, because like we're gonna go completely off topic again. But, like, that lady from 19 Kids and Counting, she wasn't Mormon or whatever religion they were before that. She was actually, like, going to law school and stuff.
Oh, really?
Meets him, and then, like, she decides, oh, well, I'll do whatever he wants.
Yeah, they're not Mormon. They're Christian. They are Christian, but they're not Mormons.
Mm-mm. Are they evangelicals?
I forgot what sector. It was on one episode, and I was like, oh, because I assumed they were Mormon, too.
I'm sorry for assuming.
But no, they're Christian and not Mormon.
My bad, Mormons.
I mean, they kind of dress like them and have cajillion kids.
Thank you.
But they're not.
Wait, so those, like compounds where, like, all the women are kind of like that, too, they're not Mormon, or they are Mormon?
They are. They are.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like a... You know how, like, every...
Has, like, different branches?
Extremists or different sets? Yeah. Because they're the ones who decided to stick with the polygamy doctrine, whereas most modern Mormons don't practice that anymore. Okay. It's the ones in the compounds are the ones who stuck with it, because I guess it's easier for them to stick together than to be like hidden and stuff like that. So
either way, look at a picture of Rusty Yates, look at a picture of Jim Bob from 19 Kids and Counting. Tell me they aren't like long lost brothers. All right, so Andrea continued seeing doctors, social workers, she attended group therapy, but nothing truly seemed to help. She kept refusing to take medication, stating that she wanted to become pregnant again. And now, she said this to the doctors, but I'm pretty sure it's because old Jim Bob, dude, whatever, Rusty, was telling her, like, oh, let's have another... Because another thing on this documentary that they said, like, basically the doctors all told him, she can't have kids. Like, she's going through postpartum psychosis. It will happen again. You have 4 other kids. Like, it's bound to happen again. And he was just kind of like, what did he say? The Mercedes-Benz thing?
Oh, like, yeah. He said it's like a Mercedes-Benz. They tell you if you get a Benz and you'll have a flu for 2 weeks, you would take it, right?
Yeah, you something take like the Mercedes if you just get sick for 2 weeks. It's kind of like, yeah, she might get sick for a little while, but we'll have a baby. And they got medications to help her feel better. Excuse the
and mental medications don't even work like that. Like, they usually have to tweak them over like a period of time, and actually a lot of people end up killing themselves in the midst of
because there's so many side effects to like medication as it is. And not only that, but like the medications that they were giving her, it seems like she was just like in a zombie state once medicated. It's like she wasn't there. So like, sure, she could physically have a baby, but she's not caring for her kids. She's not mentally capable of caring for her kids. And you're gonna bring another one in for like, what, your mom to raise him? Her mom to raise him?
Yeah. I mean, I was really about to say this for the end of this, but I feel like he's to blame. I really feel like he should have been...
Oh, we'll talk about it.
Okay, keep going.
So in late 2000, Andrea gave birth to her 5th child, little baby Mary. A few months after giving birth, Andrea's father died. It was after his death that Andrea completely stopped functioning. She stopped feeding the baby, stopped feeding herself. She drifted into a completely different world. Rusty put her back into treatment under a new doctor. Mohammed Saeed would become the last doctor to look over Andrea. The notes he received from all the other doctors and treatment centers were basically a fucking mess, to say the least. He was unaware of the hallucinations. He had not witnessed any psychosis, and even though she was damn near in a catatonic state, the doctor discharged Andrea into her husband's care. Rusty's mom arrived not long after to help with the kids. Andrea would be... was it Rusty's mom or Andrea's mom? One of their moms arrived to take care of the kids. Andrea would be in and out of hospitals, on and off, all sorts of medications. Like, the list goes on. Like, basically, she was under any medication under the sun that you would think. Like, for schizophrenia, for depression, for psychosis, everything. One day, Rusty's mom walked in on Andrea filling the tub with water, and when asked why she was doing this, Andrea responded, "In case I need it." This was like 3 months before the murders.
Need it for why?
On one of the last doctor's visits before the murders, Andrea was taken off antipsychotic medication. Andrea's mental state was so severe that more than one doctor had suggested electroshock therapy. Which I didn't even know was like a thing in the 2000s though. I thought that was like left in the
beginning stages.
Exactly. In the 70s.
I feel like maybe they use it for certain extreme cases. Like, they probably fine-tuned the process.
Yeah.
It wasn't like before where they would just be...
Going crazy.
Yeah.
But Dr. Saeed didn't think it was necessary. Rusty brought Andrea back in to see Dr. Saeed, who in turn told her to, in quotes, think positive thoughts.
Yeah, because that's so easy to do.
Exactly. And to see a psychologist for therapy. Rusty worried that Andrea was taken off her medication too quickly, but Dr. Saeed reassured him that everything was fine. But he also warned Rusty, like I said before in the beginning, not to leave Andrea alone. This was 2 days before the murders happened. Now we're going to move on to the trial. So immediately after the murders, Andrea was taken in for questioning. She coldly confessed to everything and told officers in detail how she went about killing her kids. She told investigators she wasn't mad at her children, but instead she killed them because she thought they were not developing correctly, because she was a bad mother and feared they'd go to hell. Nia's face is priceless at this moment.
It just makes me think about animals when they give birth to their kids, and you know how like, sometimes they'll eat them if there's something wrong with them?
Yeah, if they're like the smallest ones or something like that.
Yeah, like sometimes they know that they have defects and they eat them. It just sounds like the same thing.
Not like 30.
She's just off them all. Like, this is... Ugh.
She told them she'd been having thoughts about hurting them for 2 years. She said she needed to be punished for being a bad mother and that by killing them, she would be punished as deserved by the justice system. Andrea Yates was charged with capital murder for intentionally and knowingly causing the deaths of 3 of her kids. So she was only charged for 3 murders. Prosecutors did not charge her with the murders of the 2 youngest boys in case they did not get the convictions needed the first time around, which actually I thought was really smart.
Oh, at first I was like, is there like a limit on how many you can get?
I was like, wait, what do you mean? She killed them all. Like, what are you saying? But that's like really smart. Touche to them. The prosecution claimed that she was competent and would request the death penalty. Andrea's defense lawyers obviously did not agree. They requested their own experts be brought in to evaluate Andrea to prove that she was in fact not competent and enter an insanity defense. A competency hearing was called, during which Dr. Gerald Harris, a clinical psychologist who had interviewed Andrea while in prison, would testify that Andrea showed signs of psychosis and hallucinations. Andrea said that she saw Satan in her cell and that he spoke to her. She couldn't process questions or looked as if she couldn't like hear the questions at all. She just wasn't there. She was very clear in stating that she wanted to be executed so that she and Satan, who possessed her, would be destroyed. She also requested her hair be cut into the shape of a crown. She believed the number 666, the Antichrist, was imprinted in her scalp.
So what did cutting the crown have to...
Look.
Okay.
After being on medication for some time, at the end of August, Andrea seemed to be doing better. She could hold a conversation. She was no longer suffering from hallucinations. During the hearing, an expert on depression concluded that Andrea would be competent in the future with continued treatment. Each side brought their own set of experts, all of which concluded and agreed that Andrea suffered from psychosis, but the question was whether or not Andrea Yates was competent to stand trial. On September 24th, the jury deemed her competent to stand trial, and so it began. The prosecution claimed that Andrea, although seriously ill, had knowingly drowned her 5 kids. She knew it was illegal and knew it was wrong, and they provided facts to substantiate these claims. She waited until her husband had gone to work so no one would be there to stop her. She prepared for it. She attempted to do it before. She was methodical and called the police afterward. They claimed Andrea was using her belief that she was saving her kids from Satan as an excuse and had planned to do this a long time ago. She knew her hallucinations and her thoughts of harming them were wrong, but had done nothing to protect her kids from them. She admitted many times that what she did was wrong and that it was a sin. She knew she deserved the death penalty because she did something awful, needed to be punished. They also pointed out that her act of covering the bodies was an act of guilt. They presumed her motive for killing the kids was to escape an intolerable, high-stress situation.
I remember reading somewhere that they said that female killers or murderers usually cover the bodies anyway. It's just like something that women do because I guess are nurturing.
Well, and also it's the thing that a lot of men who kill, the reason for it is sexual. So they actually get pleasure from seeing what they've done, as opposed to if a woman does it, it's more of this is out of necessity, let's say, or out of there's a reasoning behind it. So she's not getting any pleasure from what she's done, unlike men. Yeah, because
the men usually tend to defile the body or
they like to see it so that they can go back and think about it later. Yeah. The defense said that Andrea was not capable of knowing what she was doing because she was legally sane. She had been suffering from severe postpartum depression as well as postpartum psychosis, which I didn't know was a thing. I didn't know existed until this. And apparently it's very common. 1 in 500. I don't know how to say that. Is that 1 in 500? Yeah. New moms?
Yeah.
Okay. Are diagnosed with it.
I've always heard of postpartum depression, but not the psychosis one.
Exactly. That's scary.
It is.
The defense stated that her illness was so severe and so long-standing that Andrea's ability to think in abstract terms, give narrative responses, and to be able to connect the dots was impaired. That was a direct quote. I don't use big words. They also made it clear that they were not looking to use the whole devil made me do it as a defense, but wanted to show that Andrea was very ill. The defense faced a slight problem, though. Andrea had been on medication and was stabilized for the whole 8 months leading up to the trial. So she was sitting in court and she looked perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. So their whole thing of her not being there, not being being in a catatonic state, it was just no longer her. She was okay now. During closing statements, the prosecution called for 3 minutes of silence so that everyone could experience the amount of time each child had endured during the drowning process before they died. This was a dramatic move, one that the defense was not ready for. Add your commas, people, it'll fuck you up in the end. The trial lasted 3 weeks, but it took the jury less than 3 hours to find Andrea Yates guilty of murder on March 12, 2002. During the penalty phase, it took the jury just 40 minutes to sentence Andrea to life in prison. She would be eligible for parole in 2041 at the age of 77. But in 2006, her conviction was overturned during an appeal on the case, and it was retried. On July 26, 2006, Andrea Yates was found not guilty by reason of insanity and was transferred to a high-security mental facility in Texas. Then in 2007, she was transferred to a low-security state mental hospital where she remains to this day.
Okay, well, at least she's still locked up. I don't understand how they reversed it, but...
Exactly. Well, part of it was, the fact that there was actually, a gag order, during the whole beginning.
One eternity later.
Okay, so the whole, retrying happened because there was like a gag order towards the beginning, like right when the murders happened and everyone was like grabbing lawyers or whatever. There was like a gag order that wasn't really like, people were just talking to everyone. So they kind of used that. Then one of like the witnesses or experts for the prosecution actually like kind of lied a little bit, said some like fake facts or whatever, so that they used that to retry the whole thing.
So false news.
Fake news. Fake news. All right, so I have a little bit of afters here. We're going to talk about Mr. Rusty Yates here.
Rusty.
So, he was told multiple times that Andrea should not get pregnant after her first mental breakdown. This was back when they were still like, I think this was before the miscarriage or something like that, when he came in and found her like chewing on her fingers. Like they told them that they shouldn't have kids after that.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Andrea was also homeschooling. I didn't mention this. She was homeschooling all the kids while they were in that damn bus. So she was like alone all day. She had to try and take care of herself. She had to try and take care of 3 kids and homeschool them. He was, I mentioned this before, so I guess I mentioned most of this already. Immediately after Andrea murdered their 5 children, Rusty went in front of the cameras. He said he felt torn, but it was not his wife who had killed the children, but it was her illness, which is the load of shit because, that he actually believed she was ill because, listen,
he never gave a fuck about it before.
Oh, but wait. In 2001, while transporting Andrea to one of the many hospitals, this was like the very first time she was like at a hospital or whatever, her brother was in the car with him and said that Rusty said that depressed people just needed a swift kick in the pants. So the whole thing of like him feeling sorry for her and she was very ill is a load of crap because he actually didn't believe that like that it was a thing, exactly. He still believes to this day, there's like interviews from like maybe 3 years ago or something like that, that she was like, it was her illness that killed the children, not her. And in fact, Rusty apparently told reporters as well as his close family that he strongly believed that Andrea would be found not guilty and that she would return home and that they would have more kids. Like he had this planned.
More kids.
After
she killed the first 5.
Immediately after, like during the trial. He wanted to have more kids with her.
And this is why I feel like he should be charged as an accessory to the murder.
There was like a lot of people that thought that. And like, but there was like, they just did nothing about it. Like there was really no charges that could be brought upon. It wasn't like he was like physically abusive or anything like that. Like there's only so much like, unless there's like physical evidence that he like actually took part in it or some shit. Of course he's like, what is it, morally responsible? Is that morally? Yeah. I guess the way to put it or something like that. And he's like super Christian and I'm sure he'll see his
I mean, yeah, you're right. There's no like physical evidence, but there's such thing as like mental abuse, and it was clear that he controlled her, which is a form of abuse.
But a lot of people would argue that he took her to hospitals and that he tried to help her. So that like that's the bullshit.
After everybody got into his ass about it.
Thank you. Well, Rusty filed for divorce a couple of years after the trial because he came to the reality that having kids with her is not a good idea. He remarried and had another kid years later with another woman, but she ended up actually filing for divorce as well. Like from him. She divorced him.
Because his crazy ass was probably wanting about 10 million kids.
Or like some weird, God knows what that man was into. He still talks to Andrea via email and on the phone. He visits her once a year. And they talk about their kids, old memories, and where they'd be now had she not killed them.
What?
Like, this so, like we were talking about it earlier. Like, a part of me wants to be like, fuck her. She killed all her kids and all that bullshit. But at the same time, like, she was ill. Like, she was, like...
It's very clear.
Like, very obviously not mentally stable or anything. She had like a whole history of it. So it's like, can we be as cold as we usually are? I know.
Towards Rusty.
And I mean, I feel like towards her too. Because it's like, at what point where your kids are screaming and shit do you not like snap out of it for 2 seconds? But then again, like my knowledge of like mental illness and all that is not, I'm not an expert.
I just wonder if she ever reached out for help herself at any point.
Not until she started showing signs of, like, having episodes and, like...
But they said that she knew that she was having problems before they had kids, and she never said anything. She kept it to herself.
Yeah, it was kind of like she wanted to show, like... Well, you know, when you're a teenager and you go through things, like, sometimes you're just like, well, I'm not going to say anything because no one's going to take me serious. Or...
I feel like for her family to admit that they had mental issues in their family, either they kept it on the hush-hush when she was a kid... Because I would feel like if I knew my whole family had problems, I would feel more comfortable to be like, hey, I think I need help. So I feel like they either kept it on a hush-hush, or they were like a lot of religious people who feel like you just pray it away or go away kind of thing. But when did she become religious?
Well, that's my thing. Like, so what I found is I didn't find her or her family to be super religious.
It wasn't until she got with him.
Her, like... She didn't date as a young person, like a kid or whatever, or a teenager, but it wasn't because she wasn't allowed to. It was just because, like, she wasn't interested in it. I feel like it wasn't until she met old boy that, like, she became super religious. Mm-hmm. And, like, I'm sure had she, like, worked through her teenage mental illnesses or whatever, and, like, when she met him, and then, she, like, it came back, and she realized, like, oh, well, you know, we're super religious or whatever. Like, he's not going to believe me, or he's going to say it's the devil or some, you know, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's one of those cases where you're just like...
That's weird.
Anyways, yeah, that was the Andrea Yates case. Another rough one.
Yeah. I feel bad for the kids. Like, they never got to live their lives. But
I killed by their own mother.
Definitely blame
Rusty.
Senor Rusty over there.
Mm-hmm. Jim Bob. What are we gonna, like, cease and desist from them?
Yeah.
19 kids and counting.
Don't compare us to these people. I'll be like, look, get your own children in control.
Exactly.
Especially that older one.
That older one with his little free hand and...
Nasty ass. Okay. My case this week is Myra Hindley.
Look, no association, all right?
And the Moore murders.
Yes, I remember this one.
Okay, so just a little backstory. Myra did not act alone. She had a partner in crime by the name of Ian.
Can we change her name? Like...
M. Just call her M.
This is so weird. Because it's like Myra did not... I was like, what did I do?
I've literally have her name in here like 5 million times, so we're going to have to find something else.
Right.
But this is like one of the UK's like most famous crimes. It was one of the most heinous ones. And per usual, when we do stuff from overseas, details of the actual crimes are limited. It's like they do a good job of just like...
erasing it.
Yeah.
Or I just feel like maybe they're not as into details as we are.
Possibly. But I do mention as much as I can. So, let's get started. So I'm going to start with her childhood and the life before she started doing all of these things. So, Myra was born on July 23rd of 1942.
Goddamn.
In Manchester, England, to working class parents, Nellie and Bob.
Jim Bob.
Bob was in the military and spent the first 3 years of Myra's life in North Africa during World War II. So he was stationed there.
Interesting.
During World War II, yeah. When he returned, he began drinking heavily and beating on his wife.
Oh, Lord.
This caused the grandmother, who was living there to help raise Myra, to move out the home. And but she didn't move too far away. She moved like around a corner. So she would often show up to help break up the fights between the parents. At the age of 4, she was sent to live with the grandmother after her sister Maureen was born. So you just
forgot about her?
Just fling her away and shit, you know. But which I really think is kind of fucked up, because at least, I mean, her parents lived around the corner, but it's just fucked up. You just replace your kid.
Exactly.
Like, oh, we didn't like this one. We're gonna have another one.
Let's
you can
try
have her.
again.
Yeah, it's like crazy. So though she was sent to live with her grandmother, her parents still seemed to be somewhat involved. It was said that her father was taught her how to fight, and he taught her that it was important to defend herself. And she even once beat up a boy in a street fight.
Damn, son. All right, Myra.
Her dad seemed pleased by it, and it seemed that this behavior was one of the only ways she could get attention that she craved from him. So she was always fighting and shit.
Lord.
On the flip side, she actually enjoyed reading and did very well in school. So she was a bit of an intellectual. She was admired by many of the neighborhood parents and was frequently asked to babysit. Well, they didn't know she was going to be a children killer later in life. And though she had a good reputation with the adults due to her good grades and sense of responsibility, some of her friends told a different story. There was a classmate of hers by the name of Susan Carter who described her as not having empathy for anyone else, and that if someone hurt themselves, she wouldn't seem upset at all. I mean, sometimes I don't either, but I'm not about to be murking people.
Thank you.
Okay. Michael Higgins was a close friend of Myra's, and
I have no friends.
and they would often go swimming together. On one occasion, she decided not to go with him, and that time he drowned.
Damn.
Right, the one time she doesn't go.
Holy shit.
It was said that though devastated by his death, she seemed fascinated by his lifeless body. So I don't know how she managed. If she didn't go swim with him, I don't know how she managed to get to see his body, but she did. And so she was 15 at the time, and she converted to a Roman Catholic after Michael's mom gave her his rosary right out of his dead hand.
Ooh.
And she also dropped out of school.
Lord.
At the age of 17, her father suffered a stroke. He became increasingly mean and disrespectful to her mother, and when she became aware of this, all of the fighting that he taught her kind of backfired because she began to beat and humiliate him.
Oh my gosh.
She wanted more for herself and contemplated joining the army or going to the U.S. as an au pair, but ended up finding work in London.
She's gonna be an au pair.
Right. And you start murdering kids.
Lord.
She's had a little bit too much interaction with young ones.
Have you ever seen that movie, Au Pair? From like the Disney?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So then we get into how she met Ian. His name was it Bradley or
Brad?
Brad.
I think it was Brad.
So, I don't know. His last name, I've seen two different spellings of it. But anyway, so in January of 1961, she was 19 at the time and was working as a secretary at a chemical firm. Mm-hmm. There is where she met Ian, and she was quoted saying that he was everything. She was quoted saying that everything was different about him, that he was the only man she's ever met with clean fingernails.
That was disgusting.
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
Well, in the doc, they were saying it could be because she was from the working class, so most of those men had dirty hands and nails.
You can scrub your fingernails, man.
That's true. Have you ever looked at a mechanic's hands?
No.
Well, not all of them, but like some of the older ones, they're like so stained from the oil and stuff. It don't matter how much they clean it. Ugh. It just looks black. Yeah.
Ugh.
Disgusting.
Clean your fingernails, men. You
Every
filthy
day.
Animals.
Filthy animal. So, I must have left this out, but she was engaged around the age of 17. And when she met, it was a longer engagement because she was 19 when she met Ian. But when she met him, she called off her engagement.
Damn, cold-hearted.
Keep in mind, Ian didn't pay her any mind at the time. So she was like super smitten by him.
It's like all of us.
But he wasn't impressed.
Boys.
Yeah. There's the elusiveness of not paying me no attention. So, like, he really didn't give two shits about her at the beginning. And it was said that the only time that he showed any emotion was when he would explode into bats of rage.
Kind of her dad?
Yeah, just like her dad.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that they shared was the love of books. She was specifically impressed when Ian began reading Hitler's autobiography in its original German.
You were impressed?
Right. was like, is it the fact that he's reading German, or the fact that it's Hitler?
Or just reading in general. She just said, I don't care what he's reading. He's reading.
He will later give her the nickname Hesse based on the right-hand man of Hitler.
That was scary.
That was noted in the book. And they also said that it's probably because, you know, he wanted her to help him play out his sick fantasies.
Like Hitler.
Yep. So she kept a diary, and in it she wrote about him romantically a whole year. The bitch was obsessed before he finally started to take a liking to her.
And my whole thing is like, we all know like one of these chicks who like does not leave the guy alone. Like the kind that will nowadays message him, the one that will pop up at his job, in school she'll pop up after every class, and then the guy finally like, all right, I'm sick and tired of her. I'm gonna just date her for a bit.
You need to watch. You need to watch the Parkers, because it's a. Do you remember Moesha, right? The show Moesha. You remember her for her best friend, one of her best friends, Kim, the chubby one.
Okay, yeah.
So when the Moesha ended, she got a spinoff. Was called the Parkers. It was her.
Monique
was her mother.
Okay, yeah.
Monique used to do that shit too. She had a crush on Professor Ogilvy.
Yes.
So you've seen it,
yeah. I've seen. Exactly.
The same type of
it's
shit.
It's the same thing where like it's not the guy likes you, it's he finally gave in because he's sick of your shit.
Yeah,
that's what it is. Don't be that girl.
You wore him down.
Exactly.
So the pair shared their first kiss at a Christmas party. But it was kind of clear he had never kissed anyone before, because he actually bit her and like bruised her lip.
No, it's not that he didn't know.
He was into that kinky shit.
Exactly.
I mean, you know, biting the lip is sexy sometimes. But
not to bruise.
Exactly. As mentioned before, they enjoy reading books, and he would suggest many for her to read. Like, he would give her like full-on list of books to read. And one of which includes the works of something I can't pronounce. But basically, he was a philosopher who claimed Christianity smothered humans' potentials. And I can't really say I disagree there. But that was, you know,
true.
And then he also introduced her into books on sexual sadists. She followed him blindly and even stopped going to church after he told her there was no God.
Well,
now this is where it gets a little spicy here. He took her virginity, but he didn't just take her virginity. He did it by using some of the techniques that they learned in the books, and often
books?
I told you he gave her books on sexual sadists. Oh,
okay. Oh no!
And he often beat her during sex. So they was into.
He was into.
Yeah, well,
he was.
She just did it because he was into it.
Ugh.
So, fully under his spell, one day he told her that his ultimate fantasy was to rape and murder others, and began to groom her to assist. So, in 1963, she learned how to drive in order to become a getaway driver for him. And also purchased 2 guns, which I don't understand why, because they were not used in any of the murders, but she purchased 2 guns.
Well, maybe they had a Clyde shit.
Maybe they had a larger plan that they never got a chance to do. Though she followed his every wish, she woke up one morning to find herself in yet another one of his fantasies. Apparently, he drugged her with her grandmother's sleeping pills, raped her, and bit her like all over her body.
Oh no, stop!
And he also took photos of her.
Ugh.
Yep. So, let's get into the murders.
Let me have a drink.
The first murder happened on July 12th of 1963. They picked up their victim. Well, let me rewind a bit. The plan was that Myra was to drive a van around town while Ian followed not too far behind on his motorcycle until they found a target. Myra noticed
like a shopping Target?
Yeah, because they had Targets back then. Shut up. That sounds like what we do every Saturday. It's like, oh, let's go to this Target. So, but anyway, so they found 16-year-old Pauline Reade. How did they pronounce it? Reade. Reade. Okay. Reade. Pauline Reade, who happened to be a neighbor and friend of Myra's younger sister.
Oh shit.
Pauline was wearing a blue coat and white heels, and she was offered a ride in the van. So offered a ride home. I guess because she trusted her. She was like, "Oh yeah, I know you, bruh. Come on, get in the car." So,
with those words exactly.
Yeah. So she got in the van, and while in there, she was asked if she wouldn't mind helping her look for an expensive glove that they had lost at the Saddleworth Moor. And this was a place that the couple frequented often for picnics and stuff like that. They just like
picnics.
The area.
Wink, wink.
Right. When they reached the location, she introduced Pauline to Ian and told her that he was there to help. Pauline was left alone with Ian for about 30 minutes, and when Myra returned, she found Pauline dying. Her throat was cut twice.
Holy shit.
And the collar of her coat was stuffed into the larger wound.
Oh, no!
Seemingly on purpose because it was located over her vocal cords, her vocal box.
Throat slitting is like one of the things I cannot, like, in movies. I like start sweating. Like I can't.
I just think about the Addams Family when they did it on the kids did it on stage of dramatics, and it was just like stuff that's squirting everywhere.
Can't do it. Ugh.
Okay, well, Ian, I'm sorry. So her coat was also unbuttoned, and her clothes were in disarray, indicating that a sexual assault had happened.
Ugh. 30 goddamn minutes, man.
I mean,
that's all it took.
You know, the first time in new...
All right, let's move on.
Okay.
You filthy animal.
So Ian had hidden a spade nearby and used it to bury the body. Now, I have a question. Aren't spades the little ones you use for, like, potted plants?
I thought we were talking about cards here.
It's a type of shovel.
I didn't know that. I know nothing about gardening.
It's a type of shovel, but I can't remember like the size of it because it just doesn't seem big enough to be digging a ditch with. But
maybe they were there for a couple hours.
All right. So anyway, he used that to bury her body, and once finished, they placed the motorcycle in the back of the van and headed home, passing Pauline's mom and brother.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they were actually out looking for Pauline.
Oh
yeah. So, the next murder these murders actually had like some time in between them, which was a little different. So, the next one didn't happen until November 23rd of the same year. And they approached 12-year-old John Kilbright at a market and offered him a ride home. During the ride, they asked him if he would be willing to help them look for the lost glove, just like they did Pauline. When they reached the moor, John went with Ian while Myra stayed in the car. Ian sexually assaulted John, slit his throat, and with a 6-inch serrated blade, and then strangled him with a shoelace. Because I guess slitting his throat just wasn't enough.
Oh my God.
On June 16th of 1964, Myra had asked 12-year-old Keith Bennett to help her with loading some boxes into her van and offer him a ride home after. Ian was in the back of the van and, like the previous victims, asked the boy to help them look for the glove at the morgue. Ian went off with the boy and returned alone with the spade in his hand. So I guess he did whatever he did, buried him. And
so Myra didn't have anything to do, like...
Well...
Okay, all right.
We'll get there.
All right.
We'll get there. So on December 26th of 1964, they visited a fairground. It's just like right after Christmas. They visited a fairground in search of another victim. And
well, remember, they're not religious. He didn't believe there was God.
Oh, yeah, duh.
Like that.
But, okay. So,
Sorry.
I didn't think it applies to them. It's just like I was putting dates together in my brain. It's okay, though. So, they visited the fairground in search of another victim and noticed 10-year-old Leslie Ann Downey. They approached the young girl, deliberately dropping their shopping bags to make it seem like they need help, and then asked her to help them carry it back to the car.
Yes. 2 adults ask a 10-year-old to help you.
Exactly. And then they asked her if she wanted a ride home. Because, they told her, like, oh, yeah, your mom might be concerned about you being out so late, so we'll, like, take you to the house and stuff like that.
Children.
So, once there, so then while they were in, so they took her back to the house, sorry. And once they got her back to their house, they undressed her, gagged her, and forced her to pose for pictures before she was raped and killed. The next morning, she was taken to the morgue to be buried. And she was placed in a shallow grave, naked with her clothes at her feet. And I'm going to pause for a second before I get into this last murder to talk about what Myra said about...
this Myra here, right?
The Myra in the studio was talking about as far as whether or not the woman did any of the killing or whatever. So what I'm reading is mainly her accounts. I mean, with the little girl, Leslie, she claimed that she was drawing a bath for Leslie, and when she came back, she was dead. Or like the other case where she claims that the kids went off with him for 30 minutes.
Which we see a lot with a lot of these like paired murders, like where it's two murders. Like, well, I was just waiting here and he took her, or I was just waiting. I didn't know this was happening.
Well, basically, Paul, his name is Ian. Ian says a completely different story. He claims that she witnessed everything that went on, that she was fully involved. So I don't really know which one is accurate. More. I don't think she was fully innocent as she tries to make herself out to be. So let's get into the last murder before they got caught. So on October 6th of 1965, that's almost a year later, give or take a few months, the pair met their final victim, 17-year-old Edward Evans. They introduced themselves to him as brother and sister and invited him back to their home where they would relax over a bottle of wine.
Kissing siblings?
This time things were to play out a little bit differently. Ian had become good friends with Myra's brother-in-law, David Smith, and decided to involve him in the kill. Even though David had no idea what he was about to get involved in.
Oh my God.
So David was in the kitchen with Myra when she heard a scream followed by Ian yelling for help. So in the documentary, it said that actually Myra had went in the room and called for David, saying, "Oh my God, help Ian." But when he came into the room, Ian was striking Edward repeatedly with an axe and then strangled him with an electrical cord. David assisted Ian with carrying the body to the car, but Ian had twisted his ankle, so instead they wrapped the body in plastic sheeting and put him in a spare bedroom. David agreed that he will return the next morning to assist with the disposal of the body. So David was interviewed in the documentary that we watched too, and he said that he just did that so he can get out of there, so he could survive it. He just like played this cool, like, oh yeah, it's not a big deal, I'll help you out kind of thing, whatever. So we're getting into like the arrest and things that happened with that. So David went home to tell his wife about what happened, and the two quickly agreed that the police should be called.
You think, you stupid idiot?
Right. He used a payphone, and he told them, and this is a quote from the call, that so it is Brady. So that Ian opened the door and he said in a very loud voice to him, "Do you want those miniatures?" Talking about mini wines. I nodded my head to say yes, and he led me to the kitchen. And he gave me 3 miniature bottles of spirits and said, "Do you want the rest?" When I first walked into the house, the door of the living room was closed. Ian went into the living room and walked into the kitchen. I waited about a minute or two, then suddenly I heard a hail of screams. It sounded like a woman, repeatedly high-pitched. Then the screams carried on, one after another, loudly. Then I heard Myra shout, "Dave, help him," very loud. When I ran in, I just stood inside the living room and I saw a young lad. He was facing upwards. Ian was stretched over him, facing him with his legs on either side of the young lad's legs. The lad was still screaming. Ian had a hatchet in his hand. He was holding it above the head, and he hit the lad on the left side of his head with the hatchet. I heard the blow. It was terrible, hard blow. It sounded horrible. So that's what his call was. So shortly after receiving the call, police showed up at the back door. Myra opened the door and pointed the police to Ian, who was in the room writing a note to his employer asking for time off due to an ankle injury. But remember, he twisted his ankle carrying that body.
So, like, for their other murders, it was always, like, sexual. Like, do you think that this one was supposed to be sexual, too? Do you think they were going to try and involve, like, his brother? Because it's, like, it just seems like if you already done this, you know what you like, let's say, like, as far as, like, murdering people or whatever, but you have your brother there. It's like, why are you going to murder someone?
This one was very different because they also brought him back to the girl before they brought back to the home, but that was like a new thing they started doing. I feel like maybe in this case he just went to his fit of rage.
True.
Because it was like maybe he couldn't overpower him. Maybe there was a situation there, or maybe he just didn't expect for.
Because it's like he was offering his brother like the alcohol, so it's just like, was he trying to get him drunk and have like some weird group thing? Like, I don't know.
I have no idea.
I guess we'll never know.
The world may never know. So, so he was writing a letter to his employer to ask for time off because of an ankle injury, but we all know that came from carrying the body. And the police explained to him that they were there investigating a report of violence that happened the night before. Mm-hmm. He denied anything had happened and allowed them into the house. So they like searched the house and they ended up going upstairs and found the room with the body in it, but it was locked. So they didn't go in yet. It was locked. When they asked him for the key, Ian said it was at work, but the police was like, well, we can take you there. Like, there ain't no but a thing.
This ain't no problem.
Right. There ain't no problem. So, when that happened, he told Myra just to give up the key. Like, the jig is up. Like, just give him the shit. So once the body was found, Ian was arrested, but not Myra. She did, however, demand to go to him to the station with the dog. I don't know why the dog needed to go with her, but his name was Puppet or whatever the fuck.
I have a feeling they did some weird things to that poor dog.
Probably. There was some information about the dog, but I decided not to read it.
Oh, so they did do things to the dog?
I don't know if they did things to the dog, but like...
Or involved him in it?
The dog... So they used to go to that more a lot, mm-hmm. So the dog would go in turn. So I think they were trying to use the dog to help them to find certain things, but then there would end up being something wrong with the dog. I just skimmed through it because I didn't want to see nothing crazy about no dog. Like we got enough going on with these children. I just skimmed through it.
So we can say that this poor dog suffered some stuff.
Some kind of way. So while they were questioning her at the stations, they was questioning both of them. They told her that she can come back the next day since they had no evidence to hold her, but she did not. And she was at liberty for 4 days. At one point during the 4 days, she stopped at her job and asked them to let her go so she can get unemployment.
What the fuck?
On October 11th, she was finally picked up and charged with accessory to murder. While she was missing, Ian told the police that Myra took any incriminating evidence that they had and put them into suitcases for disposal. Investigators found them at the Manchester Railroad Center. And it was at one of those stations where they hold like bags that weren't picked up and stuff like that. And the reason why they went there because somebody had told them that she had a thing for trains and they kind of like put two to two together. I don't know how they figured that out, but because I wouldn't have been like, let's go look in there. Yeah. So, inside one of the cases, there were 9 photos of a naked and bound girl accompanied with a 16-minute recording of screams for help and pleading for her life. It turned out that was Leslie, and her mom actually had to listen to the tapes. Yeah. While searching, then they also searched the house, and they found a book with John Kilbride's name in it, and that made investigators concerned that there may be even more victims. They also found a large collection of photos of the pair at the morgue. So, the pictures made them think that maybe we need to check this location since they go there so damn much. And with the help of 11-year-old neighbor Pat Hodges, apparently she would go with the couple to the morgue pretty often too.
What the fuck? Look, don't let your children go with nobody. No couples, no neighbors.
She helped them find the first body. They originally thought it was the remains of John Kilbright, but quickly learned it was Leslie Ann Downey. 5 days later, they found Kilbright the same way. 5 days later, they found Kilbright, and it was the same day the two were charged with Leslie's murder. On April 19th, 1966, the trial began for the murderous pair. Both pled, not guilty. And the jury found Ian guilty of all 3 charges and Myra 2. She only got charged for the murder of Leslie and Edward. Ian was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences, and Myra got 2 plus 7 years of for harboring a murderer or a criminal.
What about sleeping with one?
So up until 1985, investigators were under the impression that there were only 3 murders. That year, Ian decided to come clean and confess to the murders of Pauline and Keith. Both were taken separately to the morgue to help look for the location of the bodies, but only one was found, Pauline. Mm-hmm. Keith was never found. And they said that they decided just to stop looking or something like that. Well, I kind of felt bad for his family.
Yeah. For sure.
And in the end, both of them died in jail. Myra died in 2002.
I'm alive.
And Ian died in... No, you're a ghost. And Ian died in 2017, so just last year.
Just last year, which is scary AF.
Yes. So, well, one of my actors I kind of already said, so we'll just say the other actor. Here's a little thingy here. There were almost 6 murders.
What?
Before they had picked up their first victim, Pauline, they drove past a 7 or 8 year old girl named Marie Ruck. Uh-oh. She happened to be a neighbor of Myra's, like she recognized her, but she decided to pass her up due to her age. She felt that people would be more concerned of a missing 7 or 8 year old than they would be a 16-year-old. So they went.
But they had that 10-year-old.
But they're older than a 7 or 8 year old. I don't know. Don't ask me for logic here. This is what it says.
Oh my god.
That is that case.
It's just a bunch of fucking sad cases this week.
All of them are sad.
This is true, but it's just like children are always like,
yeah. It's just messing with these people chilling. I don't understand, like, these people who are into, like, this sadistic, like, sexual rituals. Like, you can find people
that are willing
like
to do it.
Shit.
But, I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, their whole thing isn't, like, they don't want someone that, like, you whip and they're like, oh, yeah, or something like that.
I like that.
Exactly. Harder. It's like, no, they want to hear, like, the screams.
That's probably torture for them.
Exactly.
That's what they should be forced to deal with in jail. Like, they have to fuck people who like this shit.
Bunk, mate. Oh, no.
It's like complete torture. And they can never kill them, so they just have to deal with the fact that they like it and they're never getting off because they're not killing it.
Have you seen that, like, in, what was it, American Serial Killer? Or American Psycho? Where
no,
he's
I
like,
fell asleep on that movie, remember?
Oh, come on.
Y'all were here.
Oh, I thought you'd seen it more than once.
No, I've never seen that movie.
Oh, my God. Okay, so he's, like, trying to kill this one dude in the bathroom. And, like, he's, like, a close friend of, like, the whole circle he, like, is with or whatever. Or I think he's, like, with someone. And he, like, is trying to strangle him from, like, behind. And he turns around, he's like, I knew you liked, or something like that. He was, like, completely disgusted afterwards.
Like,
he thought, like, he was gonna, like, startle. I don't know what he thought, but the guy, like, liked it and, like, gave him his number. He's like, I've been waiting for you, or some shit like that. And I was just like, yo!
I was just thinking about Family Guy. There's, like, a clip with the cow.
God.
The cow.
Y'all showed me that, and I felt so disturbed. Disgusting. Oh my god.
You have to laugh so we don't cry.
Seriously, we have to crack jokes at every, like, whenever we can, because
yeah,
if not, and drink whenever you can.
That's your choice.
True shit. It's my coping mechanism.
Oh, is that so? If you guys would like to donate bottles of wine for Myra's coping.
Yes! Bottles of wine. I love sangria. Champagne is accepted as well. Beer.
Want snacks.
Cider. Yeah, make it happen. Sponsor us.
We need to get a P.O. box.
I guess since we're talking about this, we're on to podcast news and shit. But we are on Tumblr now.
Yes, we are. I'm gonna leave that to Nia because I'm not part of it. That was Nia's idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's been beneficial. We're getting a little bit of more attention from that. But yeah, we're on Tumblr now. So if you guys want to go over there and like show us love, you can also, there's a tab for asking us questions. So if you don't want to send us an email at antisocialmurderclub@gmail.com, then you can just simply go over to Tumblr and click ask a question, or I think it just says questions. That's what I put for now. I could always change it, but just click it.
Questions, comments, concerns for management.
I don't know who management is, but yeah, if you have any questions or like suggestions or whatever, you can easily go there instead of sending us an email.
Or if you have any questions, any corrections.
Oh yeah, stuff like that. You can either use that or use our email address.
Or Instagram, or we're on Twitter as well.
Yep, we got a Facebook. We got
YouTube.
Yes, we're on the YouTubes. You know, I meant to tell you this. On that YouTube, we got a comment where someone called us crazy bitches.
Word!
They was like, these bitches are crazy.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I've said this before that I am.
It was just funny. I was like, oh, our first like hate comment.
I don't take it as hate. I feel like that's a compliment.
I don't care. I'm not like in my feels about it. I don't give a fuck. That's why we put that disclaimer at the beginning for people who like to tweet us crazy shit. If you can't take a fucking
joke,
yeah,
suck my dick. And that's how we end this week's episode.
Bye.
Bye.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.